The credit score that you're checking is probably not the one that your lender is seeing, and not knowing the difference can cost you thousands of dollars over the life of your loan. Most people are tracking the wrong credit score, and they don't usually realize it until they're sitting in front of a lender and something just doesn't line up. In this video, I'm going to explain to you the difference between a FICO score and a VantageScore. I'm also going to explain how most lenders use FICO and how you can think you have a good score and still end up with worse terms than you may have expected. If you're planning on buying a house or investing in real estate, this is not optional knowledge. This is what is ultimately going to depend on what your interest rate is, how expensive the credit is, and how much you're going to pay over the life of your loan. This is critical information. We're also going to talk about why your score looks different depending on where you check it. We're also going to talk about what lenders see when they are pulling your credit score and why it's important to check the right number instead of just the convenient one. The first thing that you need to understand is that you don't have one credit score. You literally have hundreds. There are many different ways of calculating a credit score, and it differs from agency to agency and industry to industry. Most people, however, believe that they do because most apps and dashboards present it that way. It's just not true. You might log in and see one number and it feels definitive, so you kind of think you know what's going on. It almost feels like you're checking the weather. You log in, you see what the forecast is, and everything looks fine. If you see a high number, it feels good. And if you see a low number, you might think there's something wrong. The reality, however, is more complicated than that. There are multiple ways of calculating your score depending on how the data is collected. This information is calculated using different models depending on which industry is doing the calculation. The number that you're looking at is not necessarily wrong. It's just being generated by different industries who have different perspectives. It could be that the people that are generating a number are simply doing it to present a credit card offer, or it could be that they are generating a number for insurance. It's usually not the people that are trying to evaluate the risk for a mortgage, however, and those are the ones that make the decisions. Those are the people that are looking at a FICO score. Most of us have access to a score that is generated on a credit card dashboard or perhaps one of the apps that is free. I know that you can often get a good look by using Credit Karma. And then if you want to see all three credit bureaus, you can also download the Experian app. To do that, you can see Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Those three will let you generate, hello, those three, hi puppy, will let you generate a good idea of what your VantageScore looks like. That's a pretty decent overall average. But what you really want to look at is your FICO score, because that's what the banks are going to look at. And that's what is going to determine your interest rate and what the terms of your mortgages are going to be. Mortgage lenders rely on a FICO score. FICO is short for the Fair Isaac Corporation. And a Fair Isaac Corporation score is one that was generated specifically for lenders. It has a very specific set of criteria developed only for mortgage lenders. Other people can use it, but it was designed to be used to determine risk when lending for a mortgage specifically. So when you look at what is readily available through a lot of the apps or the credit cards, that's one set of data, and that's the VantageScore. You might also see a number that is generated for an insurance offer. That's a different set of data. But what you really need to pay attention to is information that would lead to a FICO score, and they can often be very different. Because the two types of scores are generated using different types of data. It is often very possible to have a very high VantageScore, and when you go to pull your information for a mortgage, your FICO score can often be much lower. It's often the case, too, that those can be flipped. You can have a low VantageScore, but your FICO score can be higher. Part of the reason for this is that the FICO score uses trailing data. It pulls information from a larger piece of the past. A VantageScore is updated much more recently, so you have less of an average over time, and that can lead to a very different picture. It's also important to realize that a lender is not going to simply pull from one source. A lender is going to pull information from all three credit bureaus. So you can actually have different information reported. Sometimes a creditor will report only to one of the three main credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian. A lender will pull information from all of them, though, and it will take the average of all three credit bureaus. They're going to see everything that's on those reports. So you may have a credit card that only reports to Equifax, and you may have a student loan that only reports to TransUnion, but a lender is going to see everything that is reported to all of them. And that's why a VantageScore might show one thing, but a FICO score shows something else. It actually is going to be the average of the three credit bureaus that's going to determine a FICO score. Now, you can get a rough idea of where you're going to hit if you have Credit Karma, which shows the TransUnion and the Equifax, and then you also download the Experian app, which shows you the Experian. If you pay attention to those over a period of time, you can begin to see a rough idea of where your FICO score is going to come in. You'll also notice that your VantageScore updates almost in real time. If you make a change in your credit card usage, within just a week or two, you'll see it update in those three places, in the Credit Karma app and in your Experian app. Your FICO score, however, is more an average over time, and that's what the lender sees. And so that's why you can kind of be confident of what your credit score is when you walk into a bank, but then your terms are going to be very different because of what the lender sees. And the lender is looking at an average over time. So you can feel like you've got like a super sunny day, but you end up being in the middle of a nasty thunderstorm. You got to stay on top of this because the difference between a 6% mortgage and an 8% mortgage is incredible. Look at the amount that costs over a 30-year term, and it's huge. You really have to know that the amount that you pay over the course of a mortgage is significant, and a better score scores a lot. If you're serious about buying real estate, you need to get used to the fact that you need to shift your focus to the same model that lenders are using. Once you do, you'll realize that you're kind of in the same thought process that they are. You'll realize that what they see is what you need to be working on, because the cost of your capital is one of the most important things that you're concentrating on. It's what you're using to purchase your inventory, and your terms matter. When you start to approach it that way, you're no longer guessing. You can begin to predict, and you can predict with confidence. If you take nothing else away from this video, I want you to think about two things. First, you have more than one credit score. It's not one thing, it's several. And which credit score you're using depends on who gathered the data. That's pretty simple. And the second thing is, and I've talked about this before, a credit score is not some mysterious thing that follows you around and just pops out of nowhere. A credit score is a predictable model. And once you know that that's what it is, you can begin to manipulate it on purpose. The power actually ends up 100% in your control. You know what leads to a score, and so you can control the outcome. In the next video, I'm going to talk about what exactly makes up a FICO score and what you can do intentionally to manipulate yours so that when you walk into a lender, you can make all the decisions ahead of time. That puts you in a position of intentionality. And when you know what to do ahead of time, you know how to plan. Once you know how to plan, you're not just sitting around waiting on things to happen. You begin to happen. And that's a big difference. You can do this, and I'm going to show you how.